Hello, this is Dr. Joe Trout from the physics program at the Richard Stockton College of New Jersey. This video is to welcome you to Linux and to show you what you will need to access Linux computers from your desktop or laptop or any computer running the Microsoft Windows operating system. Linux is a Unix-like computer operating system. It was designed under the model of free and open source software development and distribution. The characteristics of Linux are multitasking, so it can run several programs at the same time, multi-user, several users can be logged on and actively running programs at the same time, and it's multi-platform. It runs on many different types of CPUs, not just Intel. We'll talk much more about its characteristics as the course goes on, but for now, what this video is to show you just what you need to actually get onto the Linux machines. So what do I need to access a Linux machine from my Microsoft Windows operating system? The first thing you'll need is a terminal emulator, such as PuTTY. I've listed a website it's available from, but if you just Google PuTTY terminal, you should be able to find it. I've ran this program on many versions of the Windows operating system, except for Windows RT. So almost every other version, from 3.1 to Vista to XP, and it ran fine on all of them. In my opinion, you really only need the binary, so the executable file. So before this video is over, we will have installed it and ran it. A second thing you'll need is an X-Windows server. I recommend Xming Xserver for Windows. It's also a free package that you can download. Be careful on what website you download it from, because it's available on many websites, and many of the websites will try to install fancy download packages and security packages that might not be exactly what you want. I recommend that you go to sourceforge.net and you can download the package. So let's go ahead and get started and get the packages we need. So go to your favorite browser and just type in PuTTY terminal, and it'll find it right away. You can actually go to the www.putty.org and download it from there. You have to go through a few steps. Now it says download PuTTY, and you can click. If you go down about halfway down the page, there's an executable for Windows on Intel x86. If you have some other operating system or some other processor, you'll want to go somewhere else. But for right now, let's just go ahead and download the executable. So it says you have chosen to open the executable. You can go ahead and save the file. And once the file is downloaded, my computer is going to scan it for viruses. Maybe yours will, maybe yours won't. And we could go ahead and open the container containing the executable. I'm going to go ahead and make a shortcut on my desktop so we can just click and drag it onto the desktop, because I use this all the time. You can go ahead and run it. And it will take a second, and a window will come up asking you for the configuration. One thing you'll need is the host computer IP address. Luckily I saved a few here. Let's go to Tiffany's workstation. That's 134.210.110.141. This is the IP address. And I can go ahead and paste it in there. I also want to do one slight configuration. What I'm going to go down to is the SSH, and there's a plus sign there. You can pull down another menu and go to X11, and you want to enable X11 forwarding. This will allow you to run graphics on your local machine, and you have to tell it where. So if you type localhost :0, so once again that's localhost :0, and click the enable X11 forwarding. Then you can go back to the session tab. So once again that was localhost :0, 0 being your primary screen, and localhost being the machine that you're on. If you're going to use this a lot, you can go ahead and name it. So I'm going to call this Linux Undergraduate for the undergraduate station or server. We can go ahead and save that. We can also go ahead and open it. Once you open it, a server, a SSH key might come up. You can go ahead and say yes. And you'll see a login screen. By the way, I'm going to change the settings, and we can make the appearance. We can go ahead and change the video size or the font size so you can see it. So I can go ahead and log in. Linux has a bunch of utilities that we'll look at as the course goes on. For now, let's just see who else is on the computer. So there's a utility called Who, and if you type Who and hit enter, it'll tell you who's logged on. So I'm logged on twice. If anyone else was logged on, it would also show that they were there. Let's go ahead and open an editor. gedit is available on these Linux servers. Uh-oh. It says we can't open the display. Okay, the reason we can't open the display is because we need a Windows server, an X Windows server. So let's go back on the internet. This time we'll look for Xming. So that's XMING, and hit return. SourceForge comes up first. We can go ahead and click on that. And now we can download the Xming server for Windows. Okay, while you're waiting, there'll be some clever ads that come up. And it looks like that it's been installed, it's been downloaded. So now we just need to run Xming setup. Okay, you may get a security alert that asks if you want to run it. You can say yes. Let me get rid of our browser while this is happening. Okay, a window will come up that'll say, "Welcome to the Xming Setup Wizard." Hit next. It by default goes in the program files. You can say OK. It'll ask you what you want to install. We don't have to install the PuTTY because we already have it installed. And finally, it asks you a folder to use. You can just go ahead and use the default. And I like to have a desktop icon. You don't have to do it. And I also like the quick launch. Okay. There we go. Okay, then we can finish. I'm not going to launch Xming to start out with. Okay, it says that it might not have installed it correctly. It's possible that this will come up on your machine, and it's possible that everything will be okay. Okay, to get out of Linux, you can hit exit. So type the word exit and hit enter. Now we're going to click Xming. On your desktop, if you set up the desktop icons, these three icons will appear. You want to hit X launch, and a screen will come up asking you if you want multiple windows. Say yes, and then hit next. And then you want to start it as no client, and then clipboard is fine, and then you can say finish. And then, like any good Unix or Linux program, it doesn't tell you anything. Linux, if everything is fine, there probably won't be many messages. Part of the reason for this is because it's historic. When the internet was slow and it took a lot of time and energy to transmit information, you didn't want to have to say things like everything's okay, because everything's okay. And we kind of stick with that model. If everything's fine, we just won't say anything. Okay, so we went ahead and launched Xming. Now we can go ahead and open a PuTTY window again, a terminal emulator. If you save the original setup, you can go to the Linux undergraduate, that's what I called it. Once again, we can go ahead and check and make sure that X11 is set up, all right? And it wasn't for some reason, so we'll enable X11 forwarding, and then type localhost :0, go back to our session, and we'll save it. I'm sorry, I forgot to load it. That's what happened. Okay, so we loaded it. We go to X11. Everything's fine. We'll say open. Our terminal emulator will come up. You can go ahead and type in our username. Once again, let me increase the font size a little bit. That's under appearance. Then you can go ahead and log in. Now to check it out, we'll run gedit again. And this time our window opens up. Notice that on the terminal, there are no messages because everything was great. And here's our editor. Okay, we can go ahead and close this and quit. And I'll close without saving, and we're back to our terminal. Okay, I realized that this video was a little choppy because I had to do things live, and things don't always happen exactly the way you want them to when they're live. I promise the next set of videos will run a little smoother. For now, we can do the things like check and see if anybody logged on yet. Now I'm just logged on once. We can do things like list the files. So for listing the files, you type ls. This is a utility that's used to list the files. And right now there's not much up there. ls-l will give you a long listing which shows you not only the files but all the other information. This here are the permissions. Okay, R means read, W means write, and X means execute. D means directory. So if we look, this is actually the desktop file folder or directory. This is the owner, Joe Trout, and the owner's group, which is also named Joe Trout. Our Linux servers are set up so that your group is also your username. You may be asking why there's so many R's and W's and X's. In Linux, there's 3 levels of security. One is for the user, that's the first 3. So normally the user has read, write, and execute permissions. Then the group, now I'm the only person in my group, but if I had other people that were sharing my group, they would have read and execute permissions by default and not write permissions. And finally, this last set of columns is for everybody else, or the other. And by default, they have read and execute permissions. Okay, so that's probably enough for now. You can get on, you can list your files, you can check who else is there, and you can run gedit. Alright? And now to log off, you can type exit, and it'll say log out. And then you can close the window. Okay, well, thank you for your time, and this is a wrap.